There are different angles and perspectives to every story. Hello and welcome to Diplomatic Perspective on Global Television. I am Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Stay with me as I bring you an all-angle perspective of global issues. Well, the angle is going to be cutting across different perspectives because we may not bring you an all-inclusive angle, but a perspective from global issues today. And we're starting from Kenya, where the Kenya's Deputy President, Rigathi Gachagua, was ousted from office on Thursday after being impeached in an unprecedented political saga that was gripped by the nation. As a matter of fact, in a historic move, the Senate voted to impeach Gachagua on 5 of 11 charges after a similar motion was overwhelmingly approved by the lower house National Assembly last week. He is the first deputy president to be sacked in this manner since impeachment was introduced in Kenya, and that was in the revised 2010 constitution.
The Senate has resolved to remove from office by impeachment His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua AGH, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. Accordingly, His Excellency Rigathi Gachagua AGH ceases to hold office.
Now let's move away from there and talk about the ballot counting issue that is happening. Ballot counting after 10th but calm general election in Mozambique got off to a slow start on Thursday, with an opposition leader already claiming outright victory over the Frelimo party in power since independence from Portugal. That was 49 years ago. Even though results only expected in 2 weeks, one of the leading contenders in the race to replace outgoing President Filipe Nyusi already claimed to have won the election, even though the election have not been concluded yet. Now moving to Iran, where Iran's top diplomat Abbas Araghchi and Egyptian President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi won against the expansion of regional conflict during a rare meeting in Cairo. Araghchi is the first Iranian foreign minister to visit Cairo since 2013, and the stop is part of his multi-country regional tour after Israel vowed to strike back following an Iranian missile barrage against Israel on October 1st. Egypt has historically played a mediator role between Israeli and Palestinian officials, including Iran-backed Hamas. Well, that is about the issue of the Israeli and the Palestinians. Moving away from there, the British Prime Minister Keir Starmer says the government is weighing up sanctions against far-right Israeli minister, that is Itamar Ben. And as a matter of fact, Basil Smotrich Starmer also calls for the jail Hong Kong media tycoon, I'm talking about Jimmy Lai, to be freed from prison as the pro-democracy campaigners faces trial, and wishes the best of luck to New England football team manager Thomas Tuchel. About 3 stories actually in that story, looking at it from different perspectives. Now, let's move away from there and come back home to Nigeria, where the World Bank has stated that Nigeria must maintain its ongoing economic reform for the next 10 to 15 years to establish itself as a leading economic power, not only in sub-Sahara Africa, but as a matter of fact, to also be on global stage. But then, these reforms, according to the bank, are crucial for ensuring sustainable growth and development, allowing Nigeria to compete with other emerging economies worldwide. Now, we shall be having a very critical look at the matters arising from the statement so far coming from the World Bank, because as a matter of fact, the Action Aid have reacted. Apart from some Nigerians, they've actually reacted. But today we will be looking at the reactions coming from the Action Aids, and that's going to be after this break, where my guest will be joining me as we discuss this from a perspective. Stay with us on Diplomatic Perspective. We will return after this break. Action Aid Nigeria has described the World Bank and International Monetary Fund (IMF) as the forerunners of bad economic policies in Nigeria. They went ahead to stress the fact that the two international organizations have been deeply involved in Nigeria's economy for decades. And that's before a lot of people were even born. And that they have been pushing policies that have done far more harm than good to Nigeria and Nigerians. The organization also accused GIL of urging the Nigerian government to sustain its current economic reforms for the next 10 to 15 years with no clear plans on how it will cater for the people. Looking at what Nigerians are going through right now, looking at the relationship between the World Bank, IMF and Nigeria, Action Aids went to describe the comment as being misguided and insulting to millions of Nigerians living through unprecedented economic hardship. Everyone knows, and they said it has crippled the economy of Nigeria, the industry, especially the textile sector, and that it opened the floodgate for Nigerians to become heavily dependent on imported goods. All this, they said, is the handiwork of World Bank and IMF. And they also went ahead to say before the SAP, Nigeria's textile industry was a vibrant hub employing hundreds of thousands of workers. However, with the IMF-driven policy forcing cuts in subsidy, import liberalization, and currency devaluation, Nigeria was pushed to shut down its own production capacity. Action Aid are the ones stressing this. The relationship that exists between the World Bank, IMF, and Nigeria. Joining me on Diplomatic Perspective today is someone that knows his onions. He is an international political economist. His name is Olamilekan Adefolarin. It's good to have you on the program today.
Thanks for having me. Very good morning to all our viewers out there.
Well, let's look at this critically. Well, there is a shake-off everywhere in the country. When World Bank, as representative in Nigeria, the president came up with that. And a lot of people were not satisfied with what he said. You know, when he said Nigeria needs to maintain this very policy for 10, 15 years, especially this time that Nigerians are going through so much. What do you think about this statement coming from World Bank?
For me, it's not a new statement. The statement has been with us since 1986. And the majority of African countries, third world countries, who buy into the doctrination as well as the prescription of IMF and World Bank economic policy have been living with such policy or with such advice, and it has been with us. And somehow what they are saying is that we should keep on engaging in free market economy. It's just that many people don't want to come out to talk about this particular issue from the angle of, okay, what do they really mean by we should continue with this particular policy that IMF and World Bank can advise Nigeria? One of the key messages is that the government should do away, you should not be engaged in businesses. Government should leave the business environment for the private sector to handle. That's one of the advices. Government should call down, budgetary allocation for areas like education, infrastructure, health, as well as human capital development. Those are the things they propose. And also, one of the biggest issues that normally talk about is that the currency should be devalued technically in a way that we can allow for cheaper importation of goods and the rest of them. But that has not helped Nigeria economy in the last 35, 40 years, that such advice has been on the table of federal government of Nigeria. Not just today, but even during the military, we have had this kind of advice coming, and it has always cut across issues of government staying away from doing business, privatize and commercialize all commanding height of the government businesses, public enterprises and the rest of them, commercialize and privatize them. Then government stop funding education, government reduce its spending on capital projects. Meanwhile, they advise government to go into PPP, that means public-private partnership, to build infrastructure. So those are the advices that have been bringing. So it's not new for anybody that is trying as much as possible to look at it from the angle that, okay, Action Aid is talking, others are talking. This policy, this advice has been with us. Some of us were at the age of 9 when this advice came into fruition in Nigeria.
But then, this advice has been coming. Has the Nigerian government taken hits to this advice before? Why is it coming over and over again? Is there an interest somewhere?
The reason is because the world global economy is changing. So the advice also is taking a new model. For instance, they still discovered, for me, from my own understanding, they still discovered that the federal government still own private enterprise. 64 of them are still existing. So one of the key issues is that prioritize this private enterprise, public enterprise. Don't engage in, you see, we must break this down for people to understand. When IMF and World Bank are advising you, these two organizations work in two different areas. One, IMF work on currency exchanges, which where they give you money to shock your, to be able to, address your foreign currency shortages. That means they call it forex, acute forex exchanges, or your import balance of trade is not balancing in their expected. That means you are not having enough money to import into your country. So IMF give you stabilization fund. World Bank give you what they call funding for sectorial adjustment. Those sectorial adjustment is where you hear about government cutting down on employment, government carrying out privatization and commercialization of its public enterprise. That's why you have government carrying out palliative. So those are the funding that these two organizations, this is how they distribute their funding altogether in Nigeria. And it has always cut around areas or sector or sectorial aspect of the economy whereby these international agencies have interest. And we must be able to understand.
That's exactly where I was going to, because some persons have said these people have interest, and whatever it is they're interested in may not be to the advantage of Nigeria. Remember what Action Aid is saying, taking us back 49 years ago, when they were even talking about our textile industry and some of the proposals that these people have proposed to Nigerians before that probably have not really brought us the kind of results they told us it was going to bring. Look at our textile industry today.
It's just that we may not have enough time to dissect this particular. I would have taken us back to the historical development of IMF and World Bank itself. What led to the creation of IMF and World Bank as well? Because it happens far back after the Second World War, when America now became the emerging world power. And by that time, there was this understanding that they should use American dollar as the international currency of the world, instead of the gold bonds that we normally use to do exchanges, because then countries depend on gold, acquisition of gold, to depend on how strong your currency will be on the international market. But after the Second World War, it became an issue that the European countries were not having money, so America was the one funding international development. If you could remember, there was what they call the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe. It was America that funded. It was at that point that European government, politicians, American government came together and said, let us draw an economic plan for the world, whereby we can have a funding, international funding agencies to be able to carry out this. And two important economists, Keynes, maybe we're going to have heard of John Keynes' economic models came up, as well as Petit, another French European economist, also came up. And two of them drew the plan for IMF and World Bank, and now they operate. But unfortunately, by 1970, there was no rebuilding of Europe anymore. So where would IMF and World Bank will be working? So they now turned their attention to development countries, third world countries like Africa, Nigeria, and the rest of them. And when they came in, they discovered that Africans were already enjoying what they call import substitution arrangement in the economy. Africans were not dependent, Nigerians were not dependent on importation, but we are substituting what we cannot import, we are producing here. And that's what gave opportunity for textile industry to spring up, tire, the likes of Michelis tires, and different factories come into Nigeria and begin to produce. But when these guys discovered that, okay, in Europe, there's no market, Africans are already producing. So they have to develop a mechanism. And one of the things they suggested to Nigeria at that point was that we should introduce into what they call second-tier foreign exchange market.
But then, let me cut in here. Then, let's look at it critically right now. The relationship existing between the World Bank, the IMF, and Nigeria. How is it paying Nigeria? Because gradually, Nigeria got into the situation that we are right now because of depending on importation, because we actually talked about it a few minutes ago. So what would you have to say about the relationship between the World Bank and, of course, Nigeria? Because this is coming from World Bank right now.
Exactly. The relationship is of mutual benefit but on equal benefit. Mutual benefit on the table but on equal benefit. When I mean mutual, I mean we come into agreement, we sign a bilateral agreement, you give me loan, I borrow loan, I'm your member, I pay my dues. There's what they call SDR, special direct, the special drawing right. Nigeria is a member of special drawing right. There's some money kept in billions of US dollars in IMF, in World Bank that Nigeria can draw from. They call SDR. I've done a lot of articles around that particular money. When COVID-19 came up, that was where majority of African countries were drawing money from, even when they don't have money. So the relationship between Nigeria and IMF is mutual, but on equal benefit.
So why is it unequal? Why is it unequal? Is it that some persons are more important than the other? That's where we talk about the fact. You remember where Action Aid, look at where Action Aid is coming from right now. Nigerians are just watching for someone to say, well, Nigerians are hungry right now, you know. A lot happening right now. The economy is dwindling. Our currency is falling like a stone. No value for anything right now. And someone is saying, sustain this for the next 10 to 15 years if you want to be among the global ranking. Of what importance is the global ranking when the people are hungry? That's where I'm like trying to see what Action Aid is saying. But what is your thought?
For me, the Action is not even taking it, they even took it lightly. The core problem of African countries is free market economy. A free market economy whereby you say government should not participate in business. So how would the government get fund? When government is supposed to be the
Who said government should not participate?
That is one of the underlining advices.
From the World Bank, right?
Yes. We're only taking it from the surface. You are only taking the surface one, devalue your currency, cut off subsidy. The core message of IMF and World Bank is that government should not be involved in businesses. All the you do know how many Nigerian public enterprise that was scrapped when we begin to take advices from World Bank? 688 during Babangida era. When Obasanjo came to power, over 140 public enterprises were sold. What is happening to Ajakuta today? Why do you think Ajakuta is lingering?
It's lingering
because of these advices that have been there that government should not be the one participating. Why do you think the four refineries are not working?
But what would be the implication if the federal government refused to adhere to this advice coming from World Bank? Because if it is not benefiting you, if it's not doing you any good, why then adhere to this advice? Is it because they are benefiting and they would want to go borrow from them someday? What's the reason?
That's one of the things they will have to go and borrow. But the key issue is this. There is this belief in free market economy, global free market economy, that when government participates in businesses, it doesn't carry out the businesses to make profit. It will operate on a low margin. That's one of the excuses that are given why the four refineries are not working. That because government is operating refinery, they are operating on a low margin. They are not bringing profit to the government.
So why not privatize?
Now, you are now coming to the World Bank advice. Privatization deny the people the actual welfare packages that government will offer.
There is a complication right here.
That is it, because the issue is this. If the government participates in business, government will just be producing and be selling to people as cheap as possible. So
then they will not make profit.
They
cannot maintain the facility.
They will maintain the facilities. They will maintain the facility. The problem is the people who will be managing those businesses. You get it? So instead of government operating the refineries, advices that let private investors build refineries. And when private investors build refineries, they borrow money from everywhere to build refineries. So where would they get the money to pay back? They make sure the price of the fuel is very, very high. But when government build the refineries and produce fuel for the people, it sell as cheap as possible. Now, what will now happen is that all the international global economies will now be against a government that is participating in business, in the sense that its price will be so cheap that it will not give them the opportunity to come into the market and sell to the people. I hope you understand
yes,
what
I'm understanding. But then I think there is something Nigerians are so inquisitive about. Because we're actually considering the relationship that exists between Nigeria, the World Bank, and of course the International Monetary Fund, that is IMF. As it is right now, let's look at it critically. Okay, everything that has advantages also have disadvantages.
Exactly.
The advantages that we have maintaining a mutual relationship with these organizations, how is it like? Is it doing us more good than harm?
It's doing the ordinary people more harm than good, but it's doing the business circle more opportunity to engage, to network. There's what they call the World Economic Forum, where all international business entities meet. The likes of Dangote, the owners of all the banks in Nigeria, all the choice business owners in Nigeria. They go to those meetings. Who organize those meetings? It's IMF and World Bank, where international capitalists come together to share ideas, to borrow money, to get money, to involve in businesses. That is where they meet. So it gives the opportunity for businessmen to meet. But the poor people are at this end of it suffering, because by the time all these businesses people come together and establish a business in Nigeria, and Nigerians participate in the business, they buy into the business, they pay for it.
Okay.
So that's
well,
what really
our time is fast spent, but now before I let you go, let's assume IMF is sitting here right now, World Bank is sitting here, and you are sitting here, or probably at their middle like I'm seated. What will be your advice to World Bank, IMF, and to Nigeria? Because as it is right now, it's all about the people, not the government and these institutions, because the nation, the people who make the nation exist is the people. What would be your advice looking at the situation of Nigeria right now?
Unfortunately, IMF will not take any advice from anybody. They are an entity that is guided by the principles and policies of free market economy as championed by the United States of America and the entire Western Europe. So they won't take any advice from anybody, because what they are doing is to ensure that they sustain the economy of their owners, America and Western Europe. So
okay, they don't even care about other African countries. So why are they giving us all these advices? Why?
It is the thing I said from the beginning of this discussion that the IMF and World Bank represent free market economy. They are the custodian of free market economy. They are the one that will sustain dollar exchange rate to any other currency across the world. So whatever they want to do, they will ensure that they do it in a way that dollar continue to rise, free market economies continue to get more popular, and whoever wants to suffer for it, suffer for it.
So can we say we need World Bank and IMF? Does Nigeria really need them? Looking at all these scenarios.
There has been a call for a new world order of economic policies across the world. It's just that the popularity of the campaign have suffered some defeat. And that's where the likes of Action 8 comes from. A new world order of economy. A new world order of economy. We don't need an economic agent across the world that will be dictating how economy of different nations will be carried out. And that's where the likes of Action 8 comes from. But unfortunately, we don't have much of such organizations across the world, because the noise about free market economy is gaining weight. And here in Nigeria, even people that are saying government don't listen to IMF, they are just hypocrites. What IMF is for is free market economy. How do you mean
they are just hypocrites?
The thing is, I said the foundation of IMF is about free market economy.
So the people who are saying IMF shouldn't, or World Bank shouldn't have given that advice, you said people like that
they are the one that oppose the government carrying out. They are the one that oppose the government engage in business. I've given you a simple example. The 4 refineries are not working. People are happy because it's not, because it is better to be importing the foil than to allow the 4 refineries work.
You're talking about some few individuals.
The textiles industry is not working because some people are enjoying importing textiles into the country. The motor spare part industry is not working in Nigeria because people believe that we should be importing. The electricity generation company in Nigeria are not working because people believe that we must keep importing generators.
So in other words, you're trying to say we don't need World Bank and IMF?
We don't need them. African don't need them. Third world countries don't need them. Ask me, how are Asian countries surviving? In 2008, when Asian countries suffered economic meltdown as a result of the money they borrowed from IMF and World Bank, they swore that they will never borrow money from IMF and World Bank. All the Asian tiger and Asian countries, led by China, and nobody is borrowing money from IMF and World Bank again.
Till now.
Till now.
All right, so Nigeria can also tread same paths, not borrowing money, because a lot of this money has been borrowed. But at the end of the day, what is being done with this humongous amount of money that is being borrowed from World Bank? The instructions coming from IMF, how has it affected our economy positively, our finances, our currency? Look at where we are today. Look at the ratio of a naira to a dollar. What is the differences? How much is a dollar to the naira today? Just $1. If this is not working for us, I think the federal government and the authorities, the giants, need to go back to the drawing board and see how they can get out of this. Well, it's been a very wonderful time on Diplomatic Perspective. Thank you very much, Olamileko Adefolarin. An international political economist is who we have today. And you see, time will fail us. If we want to talk, if we want to discuss things concerning the relationship between Nigeria, World Bank and IMF, it's going to take us a longer time than this. But then, we will always want to have you on the program to discuss more crucial and topical issues like this. A very big thank you to all of you for staying with us on the program today. This is going to be where we'll draw the curtain for today's Diplomatic Perspective. We'll come on your way again. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Have a wonderful time ahead of you. Bye-bye for now.